10:52 p.m. on April 24, 2021, Dee Ann Warner's phone sent its final message. A single letter, K, one keystroke that would come to define the investigation that followed. For 3 years, that brief response haunted family members, investigators, and the community of Lenawee County, Michigan. Dee Warner, a 52-year-old mother of 5, successful businesswoman, and lifelong resident of the county's close-knit farming community, vanished that night without a trace. Her disappearance would expose a complex web of domestic control, financial fraud, and secrets buried beneath the surface of rural life. Born in 1963, Dee Ann Warner was raised among the farmland and small towns of southern Michigan. Her family had lived in the region for 5 generations. She built her own business, DDW Investments, a trucking and logistics company run from the bars behind her home in Tipton. Known for her energy and work ethic, she was a respected employer, a devoted mother, and a woman admired for her resilience. By 2021, she had reached a turning point. Her 15-year marriage to Dale John Warner, 56, had deteriorated into conflict and fear. Those close to her said she had been planning to end the marriage for months, but that Saturday, in late April, was the day she finally decided to tell her husband it was over. That morning, Dee went to a salon appointment for eyelash extensions. Her esthetician, Kelly Jo Stace, later recalled that Dee arrived in tears, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Stace noted in her sworn statement that Dee was distraught about an argument with her husband, but still booked her next appointment for the following week, an ordinary act that showed she expected to be alive and free in the days ahead. Throughout the day, Dee visited several of her adult children. She spent late morning with her daughter Amber and son Zach at Amber's house, appearing deeply upset. Later, she attended her youngest daughter Angelina's soccer game, trying to keep her composure. To bystanders, she looked like a normal parent cheering from the sidelines. But inside, she was preparing to confront her husband and reclaim control of her life. In conversations with her children that day, Dee made clear she intended to file for divorce. She texted her son Zach that she was done with this and wanted to transfer her share of the Warner businesses to him. To her daughter Rickle, she voiced a fear that would later seem prophetic. "I watched Dateline every night, and Dale could do something like that to me." Her anxiety was not unfounded. Those close to the family had long observed that Dale maintained strict control over his wife's movements and communications. He monitored her phone, installed GPS trackers on her vehicle, and expected constant accountability for where she went and whom she met. Their home life had become tense and unpredictable. That evening, the tension reached its peak. Dee became embroiled in a heated dispute involving Dale and a longtime employee, Todd Nyrink, concerning finances and the management of DDW Investments. Dee accused Nyrink of undermining her and making business decisions behind her back. Dale sided against her. At 8:34 p.m., anticipating that the night's confrontation might escalate, Dee made a decision that later proved tragically prescient. She arranged for 9-year-old Angelina to stay with a friend for the weekend. The argument that followed inside the Warner home would be the last known interaction anyone had with Dee Ann Warner alive. By 10:24 p.m., Dee's friend texted her, asking how she was. The outgoing woman, who normally responded, instantly sent nothing. 29 minutes later, at 10:53 p.m., came a reply consisting only of K. Immediately afterward, Dee's phone went dark. Investigators later determined it switched from Wi-Fi to cellular service around 11 p.m. and shut off completely by 2:30 a.m. on April 25. That single letter became the final record of her existence. According to Dale Warner's initial statement, he and Dee reconciled that night. He claimed she fell asleep on the living room floor while he massaged her neck and that he moved her to the couch before going to bed. When he left for work at 6:30 a.m. Sunday morning, he said she was snoring peacefully. Investigators would later note that the story changed multiple times over the following months and contained numerous inconsistencies. At 9 a.m. on April 25th, Dee's adult daughter Rickle arrived at the family property for their customary Sunday breakfast, accompanied by her boyfriend and young daughter. The weekly meal was a family tradition. When no one answered the door, she called for her mother repeatedly, but the house was silent. Dee's car was parked outside. Her phone went unanswered. When Rickle eventually located Dale on the property, he was holding something she instantly recognized: Dee's $50,000 wedding ring. He claimed he had found it on his office desk and that Dee had left it there. To Rickle, this made no sense. Her mother never removed that ring. Dale then suggested Dee had left voluntarily, taking a travel bag, purse, phone, curling iron, and hairspray. He speculated she might be with another man or out of state. None of it fit the facts. Both of Dee's vehicles remained on site, one in the home garage, another at her office nearby. Her driver's license, credit cards, and personal items were untouched. Within hours, her children concluded she was missing under suspicious circumstances. Dale's explanations grew stranger. When deputies conducted the first welfare check later that evening, Dale claimed Dee possessed a secret phone. Body camera footage recorded his words. "I told the other kids, she's got a second phone. She doesn't know. I know she has it." Investigators recognized this as a projection, an abuser, describing his own surveillance habits, rather than evidence of his wife's secrecy. There was no second phone. Dale, however, had a history of secretly tracking Dee's devices. Dee's son Zach arrived later that day to help search the property. Surveillance footage showed him entering his mother's office and looking through buildings and equipment. When he found Dale, the older man asked, "You really don't know where your mom is?" Zach said he didn't. Dale's reaction was detached. There was no visible concern, no attempt to join the search. By that afternoon, all of Dee's digital activity, bank transactions, phone calls, text messages, and social media posts, had ceased. Nothing was used after the night of April 24th. For a woman who managed multiple businesses and maintained daily contact with her family, this abrupt silence was implausible as a voluntary disappearance. When Deputy Austin Hall interviewed Dale that evening, his demeanor was calm. He described the previous night as a bad argument following workplace stress and said Dee had a migraine. He offered no theory of harm and displayed no urgency. Instead, he portrayed her absence as typical behavior. For investigators, that lack of concern became one of the earliest red flags. Dale also told Dee's brother Greg Hardy that she took her curling iron, purse, and hairspray. To Hardy, the list sounded rehearsed. He knew his sister would never leave her 9-year-old daughter behind, nor walk away from her business empire. From that day forward, he suspected Dale of foul play. To understand Dee Warner's disappearance, investigators had to understand her marriage. Testimony and interviews later revealed a long history of coercive control and physical abuse. Dale Warner had built his public reputation as a hard-working farmer and businessman, but behind closed doors, he maintained dominance through surveillance and intimidation. Dee's daughter Rickle testified that her mother had shown her the GPS device Dale secretly attached to her vehicle. He regularly demanded access to her phone, monitored her communications, and questioned her whereabouts. He discouraged contact with her adult children from a prior marriage, fostering isolation. The abuse extended beyond monitoring. In December 2020, 4 months before Dee vanished, she confided to a friend that when she tried to leave, Dale turned into the devil and threatened she would never take Angelina with her. She told the friend, "I literally thought he could kill me." Around the same time, her business manager Stephanie Volkler noticed a large bump on Dee's forehead, about the size of a quarter, concealed under her hair. Dee said it resulted from an altercation with Dale. Volkler later testified that Dee appeared increasingly anxious and physically ill for stress. In text messages from April 24th itself, Dee told Volkler she was hyperventilating and throwing up. After telling Dale she wanted to sell everything, that same afternoon she wrote that she was done and planned to dissolve the partnership entirely. Dale's need for control included their finances. Though DDW Investments had been founded by Dee, Dale gained access to its accounts and began diverting funds. Employees later described him as erratic and paranoid, often making unilateral decisions about money and personnel. He insisted on being copied on every company email, and frequently appeared unannounced at job sites to question workers. The more successful Dee became, the tighter Dale's grip grew. When she mentioned separation, he reportedly said he had already been through one divorce and wasn't doing it again, a statement family members interpreted as a warning rather than a plea. By early 2021, the relationship had deteriorated completely. Dee told multiple confidants she feared for her life, but felt trapped by their shared child and intertwined business assets. When she disappeared in April, every piece of evidence, her emotional state, her plans for the coming week, her appointments, indicated she expected to live. The probability of voluntary disappearance was effectively zero. Law enforcement's initial response was cautious. but increasingly skeptical of Dale's narrative. Deputy Hall's first welfare check revealed inconsistencies. Dale said Dee was talking about employees quitting and tensions in business. He mentioned her migraine and said she might have left to clear her head. He did not request a missing person report himself. Dee's family did. When detectives questioned him further, his timeline shifted. At one point he claimed she went to bed around 11 p.m., in another account that she slept on the couch. He gave conflicting descriptions of what she wore and what items she supposedly took. Investigators also noted behavioral anomalies in the days that followed. On April 26, less than 48 hours after Dee disappeared, Dale met privately with a technician to change passwords and restrict access to the farm's security camera system. He did not inform police or family members. On April 27, instead of organizing searches, he retained legal counsel. To detectives, these were actions of someone protecting himself, not seeking a missing wife. Friends organized their own searches of nearby woods, ponds, and rural ditches, but nothing surfaced. Michigan State Police later joined the case, classifying Dee as missing under suspicious circumstances. Investigators subpoenaed phone records, bank statements, and business logs. They discovered that Dee's phone activity stopped exactly when Dale described giving her a neck massage, a coincidence that drew scrutiny. The 10:53 p.m. K message became pivotal. According to private investigator Billy Little, who later joined the case, Dee never once replied with a single letter in her texts. Not one time. That K was not her. By early May, attention turned to DDW Investments itself. Employees reported that tensions between Dale, Dee, and operations manager Todd Nyrink had intensified in the months prior. Dale accused Dee of overspending, while Dee accused Nyrink of deceit. In interviews, multiple workers recalled seeing arguments about money and control over equipment. The morning after Dee's disappearance, Nyrink was seen removing materials from the property under unusual circumstances, prompting investigators to review his movements. As the months passed with no sign of Dee, attention shifted to motive. Financial records revealed that Dale Warner had been quietly transferring company assets into new entities he controlled. Using a power of attorney document dated 2014, which investigators believe was forged, he created DDW Transportation LLC and began shifting vehicles, accounts, and property titles into it. By August 2021, nearly all assets of Dee's company had been moved. In 2022, Dale sold the new entity to Laidlaw Carriers Bulk, pocketing the proceeds. Private investigator Billy Little's report later summarized the scheme. Dale took everything Dee built and moved it to a shell company, then sold it once she was gone. The sale benefited not only Dale, but also employee Todd Nyrink, who obtained a position with the purchasing firm immediately afterward. Evidence indicated Nyrink had logged into the farm's systems at 3:30 a.m. on April 25, 2021, hours after Dee's phone went dark, using a false name. GPS data placed him driving company trucks from the Warner property to Burns Harbor, Indiana, and then to a wastewater facility near Chicago to pick up compost. Investigators questioned what legitimate purpose that trip could serve at that hour. The timing and concealment suggested possible involvement in disposal activity. Further evidence indicated that cash stored in the family's safe had vanished. Dee's son Zach testified that before April 24th, he and his mother shared the safe combination. Afterward, it no longer worked. When he accessed it using a backup key, most of the money was gone. Only Dale had opportunity. Around the same period, Dale attempted to subdivide farmland jointly owned with Dee, including the parcel where Nyrink lived, something legally impossible without Dee's consent. The pattern pointed to a calculated effort to seize control of all assets following her disappearance. By late 2022, Michigan State Police and the Lenawee County Prosecutor's Office had assembled extensive circumstantial evidence. They found no financial, digital, or physical trace of Dee since the night she vanished. No withdrawals, calls, or sightings existed anywhere in the United States. Her businesses were under Dale's control, and her assets had been liquidated. After 20 months of work, authorities concluded that Dee Ann Warner was dead and that her husband was responsible. On November 21, 2023, state police arrested Dale John Warner at his home without incident. He was charged with open murder and evidence tampering. At his arraignment the following day, he pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors requested a $20 million bond, citing flight risk and danger to the community. Judge Anna Fruscia denied bond entirely. Dale remained in custody awaiting trial. For Dee's family, the arrest confirmed what they had believed from the first morning. She had not run away. She had been killed. In statements to the media, Dee's daughter Rickelbach said, "We've gone years not knowing. Not knowing is worse than knowing. At least now, we can fight for justice." Her words reflected the family's resolve. Even as the legal process began, they continued to search for Dee's remains. That search would lead to a shocking discovery in August 2024, one that would finally end the mystery of where Dee Ann Warner had been all along. For over 3 years, search efforts for Dee Ann Warner continued across Lenawee County. Her family, private investigators, and volunteers organized hundreds of ground searches and drone flights. Cadaver dogs were deployed over farmland, wetlands, and drainage fields surrounding the Warner property. Every time the Michigan State Police MSP announced a search, Dale Warner's attorney, Mary Chartier, dismissed it as a fishing expedition. But Dee's brother, Greg Hardy, refused to stop. "We will keep looking until we bring her home," he said in early 2024. On August 22, 2024, the long wait ended. Acting on a renewed search warrant, the MSP Crime Lab, in collaboration with private forensic consultants, excavated a section of property approximately 1,000 feet south of the Warner home. Within hours, investigators located human remains buried beneath layers of compacted soil near a utility shed used for storage. The remains were discovered in a shallow grave concealed beneath discarded equipment. DNA analysis confirmed the identity within a week. They belonged to 52-year-old Dee Ann Warner, missing since April 2021. The discovery site was within one distance of the main farmhouse, a location that had been searched multiple times in earlier years. The key difference was the use of advanced ground-penetrating radar and updated data from a confidential informant. Investigators later said that the body's position and soil composition indicated it had been placed there deliberately, within hours of her disappearance. Clothing remnants and personal jewelry, consistent with items Dee was last seen wearing, were also recovered. Forensic anthropologists from Western Michigan University determined that the remains showed signs of trauma consistent with manual strangulation. The cause of death was ruled homicide. Detectives concluded that Dee was killed inside the home between 10:30 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. on April 24, 2021, and her body moved to the burial site later that night. The burial appeared hurried but carefully chosen, within property Dale controlled, avoiding outside witnesses. When police announced the discovery on September 3, 2024, the Warner family gathered outside the Lenawee County Courthouse. They held framed photographs of Dee in front of news cameras. Her brother Greg said, "She was here all along. We walked by her 100 times, and he knew." For the first time since her disappearance, investigators could officially classify the case as a murder, with physical evidence tying it to the primary suspect already in custody. Following the recovery, prosecutors expanded the investigation to include forensic accounting, digital forensics, and witness corroboration. The Michigan Attorney General's office joined the prosecution team to ensure transparency. The evidence file against Dale Warner was extensive, over 30,000 pages of reports, photos, and depositions. Prosecutors framed the motive as a mixture of financial control and fear of divorce. Dee's decision to leave the marriage threatened Dale's ownership of multiple business assets and farmland estimated at over $2 million. Key evidence included text messages Dee sent to friends and family within hours of her disappearance, explicitly stating she planned to confront Dale about dissolving their business partnership. Those messages, time-stamped April 24th, between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m., were cross-referenced with witness testimony from employees who confirmed hearing raised voices that night from the Warner property. Investigators also recovered deleted surveillance camera footage showing Dale moving equipment between outbuildings at approximately 3 a.m. on April 25, 2021, 3 hours after Dee's phone went dark. Digital forensic specialists retrieved partial GPS data from Dale's truck, indicating movement around the farm perimeter during that same time frame. Soil samples taken from the truck bed matched the burial site's unique composition. A burned section of carpet from the Warner residence also tested positive for traces of human blood. consistent with Dee's DNA profile. Prosecutors allege that Dale attempted to remove evidence of the crime before calling in the missing person report. Financial records further supported the theory of premeditation. 2 days before Dee vanished, Dale had transferred nearly $40,000 from a joint business account into one registered solely under his name. Investigators found unsigned property transfer documents prepared in advance that would have shifted ownership of several DDW trucks to Dale's shell company, DDW Transportation LLC. Combined with the alleged forged power of attorney, prosecutors argued this pattern demonstrated motive. Control of assets was the driving factor. Defense attorney Mary Chartier, known for handling high-profile criminal cases in Michigan, publicly rejected the prosecution's narrative. She argued there was no direct evidence linking Dale Warner to Dee's death. At preliminary hearings, she emphasized that the case was built on circumstantial evidence and emotional testimony. There are no eyewitnesses, no murder weapon, and no proof of intent, Chartier said. The defense suggested alternative explanations, that Dee might have died accidentally during a domestic argument, and that Dale panicked. However, forensic data contradicted this. The burial site's depth and concealment indicated deliberate disposal rather than panic. Chartier also tried to challenge the credibility of private investigator Billy Little, who had worked closely with Dee's family. She alleged that Little's involvement blurred the line between advocacy and investigation. Prosecutors countered that state-certified law enforcement had independently verified all evidence before charges were filed. The judge ultimately ruled Little's findings admissible as supplemental evidence. In pretrial motions, the defense sought to exclude Dee's prior statements expressing fear of her husband, claiming they were hearsay. Prosecutors responded that these statements qualified under the state of mind exception, illustrating her intent to leave the relationship. Judge Anna Fruscia sided with the prosecution, allowing Dee's texts, emails, and recorded conversations to be included. This decision strengthened the narrative that Dee anticipated violence if she tried to separate from Dale. Outside the courtroom, the community remained divided. Some locals described Dale as a hard-working man wrongly vilified. Others viewed him as manipulative and abusive, echoing testimony from Dee's children. Local media covered the proceedings extensively, with the Adrian Daily Telegram publishing a timeline of key events and WTVG Toledo broadcasting interviews with investigators. Public opinion leaned toward the Warner family as details of Dale's financial manipulation emerged. Throughout 2023 and 2024, Dee's family played a central role in sustaining pressure on authorities. Her brother Greg Hardy led the Justice for Dee movement, maintaining a social media presence that documented each step of the investigation. Volunteers printed flyers, organized candlelight vigils, and raised funds for search equipment. Dee's daughter Rickel Bach became the family spokesperson, appearing in multiple national interviews, including segments on Dateline NBC and Court TV. She consistently urged viewers to keep Dee's story alive. In December 2023, before Dee's body was found, the family filed a wrongful death civil lawsuit against Dale Warner and associate Todd Nyrink. The suit alleged that both men conspired to conceal evidence and financially benefit from Dee's disappearance. Following the August 2024 discovery, the civil case was merged with the criminal proceedings. Nyrink was subpoenaed as a material witness. He denied involvement but admitted under oath that Dale instructed him to remove specific company records from the office the morning after Dee went missing. His testimony was considered damaging to the defense. The family also pursued legislative reform. In early 2025, they launched the Dee Warner Act, a proposed Michigan bill advocating for expedited missing person investigations in domestic violence contexts. The bill sought to ensure that adult disappearances involving controlling partners would trigger immediate forensic review rather than the standard 48-hour waiting period that had delayed Dee's initial search. By the end of 2025, the proposal had bipartisan sponsorship in the Michigan House. Privately, Dee's children continued to process the loss. In interviews, they described her as a woman of strength and integrity, a mother who worked long hours but never missed a birthday or school event. Her youngest daughter, Angelita, now 13, lives with relatives and participates in family memorials held each April 24th. The Warner family farm, once a symbol of success, remains vacant, pending court resolution of ownership disputes. As of late 2025, Dale Warner remains held at the Lenawee County Jail without bond. His trial is scheduled to begin in March 2026. Prosecutors intend to pursue an open murder charge, allowing the jury to consider both first and second-degree options. Evidence tampering and fraud charges will be tried concurrently. The prosecution's witness list exceeds 80 individuals, including forensic specialists, former employees, family members, and digital analysts. The case is expected to span several weeks. Key exhibits include the recovered burial site photographs, text messages, GPS data, and audio recordings from law enforcement interviews. Prosecutors will argue that Dale Warner murdered his wife during a confrontation about divorce and business control, then buried her on the property to conceal the crime. They will contend that his subsequent financial actions, shifting company assets, liquidating vehicles, and altering camera systems, constitute evidence of consciousness of guilt. The defense strategy focuses on discrediting circumstantial links and introducing doubt regarding time of death. Chartier plans to present experts questioning whether forensic soil analysis can definitively place the burial within a specific hour window. She also intends to argue that Dale's behavior after Dee's disappearance, while suspicious, could reflect emotional shock rather than guilt. Jury selection will be crucial. The defense has requested a venue change, citing pre-trial publicity, but the motion remains pending. The Michigan Attorney General's office has stated that, despite the body being found, the case remains open regarding potential accessories or post-offense participants. Investigators continue reviewing communications between Dale and several business associates in the days following April 24, 2021. Additional indictments remain possible. The defense strategy focuses on discrediting circumstantial links and introducing doubt regarding time of death. Chartier plans to present experts questioning whether forensic soil analysis can definitively place the burial within a specific hour window. She also intends to argue that Dale's behavior after Dee's disappearance, while suspicious, could reflect emotional shock rather than guilt. Jury selection will be crucial. The defense has requested a venue change, citing pre-trial publicity, but the motion remains pending. The Michigan Attorney General's office has stated that, despite the body being found, the case remains open regarding potential accessories or post-offense participants. Investigators continue reviewing communications between Dale and several business associates in the days following April 24, 2021. Additional indictments remain possible. The discovery of Dee Ann Warner's remains closed, one of Michigan's most haunting missing person cases. For 3 years, her absence had symbolized the gaps in how domestic violence disappearances are treated by law enforcement. Her case now serves as a model in police training across the Midwest, emphasizing the importance of early recognition of coercive control as a homicide risk factor. By late 2025, DDW Investments had been formally dissolved. Proceeds from its liquidation were placed in escrow pending civil resolution between Dee's estate and Dale Warner's defense team. Public support for the family remains strong, with the Justice for Dee Foundation funding shelters for women leaving abusive relationships. Each spring, a charity run in Tecumseh raises funds in her memory, featuring the motto, "Love should never end in silence." In media retrospectives, the Warner case is frequently compared to other domestic murder investigations where the victim's own warnings went unheeded. Journalists note that Dee's text messages, videos, and witness accounts provided a clear pattern of escalating control, an early warning that, if acted upon sooner, might have saved her life. Her story has been featured on Dateline NBC, 48 Hours, and multiple true crime podcasts. The physical site of Dee's burial has been transformed into a small memorial garden maintained by her siblings. A granite marker bears her favorite quote, "Work hard, be kind, leave things better than you found them." Visitors from across Michigan continue to leave flowers and handwritten notes. For her family, the discovery brought closure, but not peace. "Justice is the next step," said Greg Hardy in a 2025 interview. "We found Dee, now we need accountability." As the 2026 trial approaches, the prosecution prepares to present its case to a jury that will decide whether Dale Warner will spend the rest of his life in prison. For the people of Lenawee County, and for those who followed the case nationwide, the disappearance and discovery of Dee Ann Warner remain a chilling reminder of how control, silence, and fear can hide tragedy in plain sight. What began as a missing person report has become a landmark case in the pursuit of justice for victims of domestic homicide.